Ohio sisters Annie Johnston and Chrissy Knott made headlines when they both gave birth to a set of twins on the same day, in the same hospital. Two matching sets of siblings to a set of sisters. It's just unbelievable. But what really blew people's minds was not the fact that the parents were sisters, because the truth was, these babies had the same father. So just what was the real story behind this amazing occurrence? Let's take a look at the incredible truth of what really happened. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Annie and Joby Johnston from Lewis Center, Ohio, had been madly in love for many years before finally tying the knot in 2005. And in early 2008, they made the decision to start trying for a baby for the first time. Having made their union official, now was the time to achieve their true dream of starting a family of their own. But as they embarked on this beautiful journey, they had no idea of the incredible turmoil that was about to come their way. When the Johnstons began their journey to conceive, they had assumed, or at least hoped, that the process would be smooth and easy for them. But as we know the saying, man plans and God laughs, because it would be a long, painful journey for the happy couple, with many bumps along the way as they attempted to make their way towards parenthood. It would be a full 5 years of trying before they finally got the answer that would change their lives forever. As time went on, the Johnstons employed every technique they could think of to try and have a baby. They had multiple surgeries to try and increase their chance of conception, in vitro fertilization and artificial insemination, but whatever they tried, nothing worked. In 5 long years of attempts, they did not have one positive pregnancy test. But then the answer came from a totally unexpected source, one that the Johnstons couldn't believe had been under their noses all this time. As you can imagine, the Johnstons had become incredibly tired from all the long and painful attempts to conceive a child. Not only is it physically draining to put your body through such things, but it takes an emotional toll too, as you wait constantly for good news but are continually disappointed. We were tired of doing the same thing and expecting a different result, Annie Johnston said to GoodMorningAmerica.com. So the time had come to try something new. But you won't believe what this new direction was. As the Johnstons began to realize that their dream of having a child was becoming even further out of reach, they started to think of other options and what else they could do. So what could they do differently from everything they had previously tried? Chrissy, Annie Johnston revealed to GoodMorningAmerica.com. Chrissy was our different thing this time around. Who is Chrissy? None other than Annie's own sister. But just what did she mean? How could her sister help her out of this impossible predicament? As Annie and Joby Johnston struggled throughout the years to conceive their desperately wanted and much longed-for child, one person was watching from the sidelines, cheering them on harder than anyone else. That person was Chrissy Knott, Annie's sister. It was heartbreaking, Knott said to the UK newspaper The Daily Mail. When they started having problems getting pregnant, it was devastating to watch. Knott, a senior consultant at Human Resources Company, decided that she would not let them suffer any longer. But just what could she do about the situation? For Chrissy Knott, the pain of watching her sister try and fail repeatedly to conceive was just too terrible to watch. She couldn't let her go through this pain any longer, and she knew that it was time for her to step in and help. Knott herself was 37 years old and happily married, and she and her husband had 2 sons. And while she was happy and satisfied with her own family, she wanted so desperately for her sister to experience this same blessing. And so she decided to do the unthinkable. As Knott was already a happily settled wife and mother, she knew that her sister desperately deserved to experience the same happiness. And while the Johnstons began to give up hope, she provided an answer to their problems with her own incredibly generous and selfless solution. Because even though she was already 37 and had 2 children of her own, she offered to get pregnant again, this time carrying her sister's babies for her. But just how would the Johnstons react to this astonishing offer? As you can imagine, the Johnstons were amazed and moved by Knott's offer to help them carry a child to term for them to take home and raise in their family. Even though Knott knew it was a bit of a crazy idea, she wanted to desperately be able to give her sister the greatest blessing of life. "I just want you to know that I'd be more than happy to carry if that would help you to have a family," Knott said to Johnston, as reported to NBC4i.com. After the shock had subsided from Knott's original offer to carry the baby for them in her own uterus, the Johnstons began to think seriously about their options. Because the truth was, this idea didn't come from Knott totally out of the blue. In fact, as far back as 2011, Knott had first raised this idea with her sister when she saw how difficult it was to conceive. But back then, it seemed like such a crazy plan, and one path that they wouldn't need to go down. But this time around, things were very different indeed. Even though Knott had originally suggested this incredibly selfless idea way back in 2011, it wasn't until 2 years later that the Johnstons actually agreed to this crazy plan and decided to go ahead with the plan for surrogacy. Off they went to the doctor, and Knott was implanted with 2 embryos in the hope that one might turn into a pregnancy. As a good measure, the doctor also planted an additional 2 embryos in Johnston herself, though the odds were of course much higher for Knott. But what happened next left everyone open-mouthed. As if the whole situation wasn't bizarre enough, the entire egg retrieval and embryo fertilization took place on a very special day, none other than Valentine's Day. We expect that most women do not dream of spending their Valentine's Day watching their husband's sperm be implanted into their sister's body, but Johnston was certainly not most women. Amazingly, she even managed to see the funny side of this whole crazy story. She joked to the Daily Mail that the entire thing was very romantic. As you can imagine, both the Johnstons and the Knotts were apprehensive about what might happen. Both sisters had been implanted with 2 embryos each, but they had no idea if any would result in a viable pregnancy. The wait begins. Now that the insemination was done, all they could do was wait and hope. The uncertainty was daunting. With 4 embryos implanted, there was a slim chance that all 4 would develop, but they knew it was more likely that none would. Moment of truth. For Annie and Joby Johnston, the next few days were agonizing. Every morning began with the thought that today could bring life-changing news or heartbreaking disappointment. 9 long days later, Dr. Jana Lindauer finally called with the results. Double trouble. The Johnstons were on edge as they awaited the news. Then Dr. Lindauer spoke. "I have double great news." The couple gasped. Was one of them pregnant with twins, or were both women expecting? Pregnant pause. The emotions were overwhelming. As they tried to process the words, Dr. Lindauer confirmed it. Both women were pregnant. It was already incredible news, but things were about to get even more unbelievable. Superscan. After years of struggles, this felt like a miracle. But at the 7-week ultrasound, they learned something that turned their world upside down. Not only were both women pregnant, but both were carrying twins. Quad goals. The news was shocking. After fearing they might not get even 1 child, they now faced the reality of expecting 4. Their family was about to grow from 2 to 6 in an instant. Even though the twins were in different wombs, they were still technically considered quadruplets, since all were biologically the Johnstons' children. N. Mix and match. Just when they thought things couldn't get crazier, another surprise emerged. A follow-up scan revealed something remarkable. Johnston was carrying 2 girls, while Knott was carrying 2 boys. Sigh of relief emotions ran high as they absorbed these developments. While thrilled, there was much to process. Annie Johnston admitted to the Daily Mail, "I was relieved more than anything, relieved that the babies were still developing." Practical matters. Despite the joy, reality set in. Johnston's husband was excited to become a father, but he couldn't help thinking about the challenges ahead. He was thinking more down the road, Annie explained, of what we were going to do with 4 babies. helping hands. Preparing for 4 babies was no small task. Though overjoyed, the Johnstons knew they had a lot of planning to do to accommodate their rapidly growing family. The families lived just 7 houses apart, and Annie Johnston's sister and husband were instrumental in planning for the unexpected yet longed-for arrival. Annie's parents were equally moved by the news and decided to relocate to the Johnstons' home to provide hands-on help. With 4 babies on the way and 2 additional adults moving in, the Johnstons had to transform their home. They created a makeshift nursery in the great room and prepared another upstairs for when the babies grew older. The house was bustling with preparations. In an extraordinary twist, the sisters scheduled their C-sections for the same day so the quadruplets could share a birthday. While this was intentional, the deliveries didn't unfold exactly as planned. To support each other, Chrissy Knott, carrying the 2 boys, delivered first, allowing Annie to be in the room. 2 hours later, Annie gave birth to the girls. After years of struggle, the Johnstons' dream finally became reality. On October 24th, they welcomed 4 healthy babies: Charlie, Tommy, Grace, and Hadley. The new parents were overwhelmed with gratitude. "We were trying for 1 baby, and now we have 4, Annie told the Daily Mail. "We still can't believe it." Leaving the hospital as a family of 6 was surreal for Annie and Joby Johnston. After years of heartbreak, their lives had changed in an instant. Back home, they faced the challenges of caring for 4 newborns. Feeding was a major task, but with Chrissy also producing milk, both sisters pumped and stored bottles, making it easier for everyone to help. The story of their conception and birth was nothing short of miraculous. The Johnstons and Knotts plan to share it with their children when they're old enough to understand. The sisters will tell them the incredible journey together. Their story spread far and wide, capturing media attention. Yet to Annie and Joby, there was only one true hero, Chrissy Knott. "We're very thankful for what she did for us," Annie said. "We're grateful they're all here." With their family complete, Annie and Joby are now focused on raising their children and embracing whatever the future holds. As Joby put it, the miracle continues.